Not all bird species build nests. Some species lay their eggs directly on the ground or rocky ledges, while brood parasites lay theirs in the nests of other birds, letting unwitting foster parents do the work of rearing the young. Although nests are primarily used for breeding, they may also be reused in the non-breeding season for roosting, and some species build special dormitory nests or roost nests, or winter nest, that are used only for roosting. Most birds build a new nest each year, though some refurbish their old nests. The large eyries, or eyries, of some eagles are platform nests that have been used and refurbished for several years. In the majority of nest-building species, the female does most or all of the nest construction. In others, both partners contribute. Sometimes the male builds the nest and the hemlines it. In some polygynous species, however, the male does most or all of the nest building. The nest may also form a part of the courtship display, such as in weaver birds. The ability to choose and maintain good nest sites and build high-quality nests may be selected for by females in these species. In some species, the young from previous broods may also act as helpers for the adults. Not every bird species builds or uses a nest. Some auks, for instance, including common murre, thick-billed murre and razorbill, lay their eggs directly onto the narrow rocky ledges they use as breeding sites. The eggs of these species are dramatically pointed at one end, so that they roll in a circle when disturbed. This is critical for the survival of the developing eggs, as there are no nests to keep them from rolling off the side of the cliff. Hammerkops are widely dispersed throughout sub-Saharan Africa. They live in diverse habitats, from forest to semi-desert, anywhere where water is accessible. They frequent lakes, rivers, marshes, temporary seasonal ponds, and man-made waterways such as dams and irrigation channels. Hammerkops are most often seen in savannas and woodlands, and may be only seasonally resident in semi-arid areas. They can be seen in the African aviary exhibit of the Maryland Zoo. Hammerkops occupy well-defined territories that they rarely leave. These birds normally occur in pairs but can gather in groups of up to 50 birds, although usually closer to 10. Like storks and herons, hammerkops are wading birds that forage for food in shallow water. They feed mainly on frogs and fish. They may stir the water with their feet or flap their wings to startle prey. Hammerkops also feed in flight, gliding over open water and dipping down to grab fish. Eagle nests are constructed with large sticks, and may be lined with moss, grass, plant stalks, lichens, seaweed, or sod. Nests are usually about 4 to 6 feet in diameter and 3 feet deep, although larger nests exist. Dates vary, but generally egg-laying begins in April in Alaska. Clutch sizes range from 1 to 3 eggs. During the nesting period, breeding bald eagles occupy and defend territories. A territory includes an active nest and may include one or more inactive nests that are built or maintained but not used for nesting in a given year. Bald eagles generally nest near coastlines, rivers, and large lakes where there is an adequate food supply. They nest in mature or old-growth trees, snags, dead trees, cliffs, and rock promontories, usually with a dominant view of the surrounding landscape. Rarely in Alaska, bald eagles nest on artificial structures such as power poles and communication towers. In forested areas, bald eagles often select the tallest trees with limbs strong enough to support a nest that can weigh more than 1,000 pounds. Nest territories typically include at least one perch with a clear view of the water, where they forage. Eagle nests are constructed with large sticks, and may be lined with moss, grass, plant stalks, lichens, seaweed, or sod. Nests are usually about 4 to 6 feet in diameter and 3 feet deep, although larger nests exist. Dates vary, but generally egg-laying begins in April in Alaska. Hundreds of kinds of hummingbirds nest in the American tropics, and more than a dozen in the western U.S., but east of the Great Plains there is only the rubythroat. There it is fairly common in summer in open woods and gardens. Hovering in front of a flower to sip nectar, it beats its wings more than 50 times per second. Impressive migrants. Despite their small size, some rubythroats may travel from Canada to Costa Rica. At flowers, usually feeds while hovering, extending its bill and long tongue deep into the center of the flower. At feeders, may either hover or perch. To catch small insects, may fly out and take them in midair, or hover to pluck them from foliage. Sometimes take spiders or trapped insects from spider webs. Eggs. 2. White. Incubation is by female only, 11 to 16 days. Young, female feeds the young. Nest stretches as young grow. Age of young at first flight about 20 to 22 days. Usually 1 to 2 broods per year, sometimes 3. Female may begin building second nest while still feeding young in the first. The edible nest swiftlet, Aerodromus fusificus, also known as the white nest swiftlet, is a small bird of the swift family which is found in Southeast Asia. Its opaque and whitish bird nest is made exclusively of solidified saliva and is the main ingredient of bird's nest soup, a delicacy of Chinese cuisine. As the name suggests, the swiftlet builds a nest that is not only edible for humans but is considered a rare delicacy. The nest, which is built out of the bird's saliva, solidifies into a 6 cm long 1.5 cm deep dish-like structure which eventually holds 2 eggs. Each pair of swiftlets spit about 10 gm of saliva to build the nest. The salivary glands enlarge during the nest building process. When exposed to sunlight, the white nest gets a golden hue. Because of this, the nest is often referred to as white gold. It is also priced like it, at a whopping $4,000 per kilogram. The nest was discovered to be an aphrodisiac and a delicacy in Chinese cuisines. Soup made from the nest is considered to be especially tasty. This very unique feature of the bird has led to its downfall too. Leaving aside all natural predators, the biggest predator for the edible nest swiftlet turned out to be humans who went on an unbridled harvesting spree. Sometimes, not considering the size and age of the chicks, the nests are harvested for profit. In the 90s, illegal nest harvesting resulted in almost 80% of their population being wiped out. The swiftlet was eventually added to our endangered species list. The sociable weaver is a species of bird in the weaver family that is endemic to southern Africa. It is the only species in the monotypic genus Philopterus. It is found in South Africa, Namibia, and Botswana. But their range is centered within the Northern Cape province of South Africa. Unlike most weaver birds, sociable weaver birds don't weave. Their nests look like huts, complete with a sloping thatched grass roof that sheds rain. The structure grows as the birds add new apartments, inserting dry grasses into the bottoms and sides. Materials used for building nests include fine leaf fibers, grass, and twigs. Many species weave very fine nests using thin strands of leaf fiber, though some, like the buffalo weavers, form massive untidy stick nests in their colonies, which may have spherical woven nests within. The giant communal nest of the social weavers, Philopterus socius, of southwestern Africa often reaches a height of 10 feet, 3 meters. The nest is usually situated in a large acacia tree and may contain more than 100 separate nest chambers, with openings at the nest's bottom. The sociable weaver, Philopterus socius, is a species of bird in the weaver family that is endemic to southern Africa. It is the only species in the monotypic genus Philopterus. It is found in South Africa, Namibia, and Botswana. But their range is centered within the Northern Cape province of South Africa. The European bee-eater is a near-passerine bird in the bee-eater family, Meropidae. It breeds in southern and central Europe, northern and southern Africa, and western Asia. Except for the resident southern African population, the species is strongly migratory, wintering in tropical Africa. European bee-eater nests consist of burrows excavated alongside cliff edges, sandbanks, and riverbanks. It can take up to 20 days to complete a burrow. These gregarious birds nest in colonies or single pairs, and often help each other build their nests. X. European bee-eater scientific classification. Kingdom: Animalia. Phylum: Chordata. Class: Aves. Order: Characiiformes. Family: Moropody. Genus: Merops. Scientific name: Merops apiaster. The horned coot is a species of bird found in the Andes of South America. It was described by Bonaparte in 1853 based on a specimen collected in Bolivia. For a long time it was known only from the type specimen. Builds remarkable nest mounds of stones topped with weeds that look like the tips of huge underwater volcanoes and take months, if not years, to complete. Nest enormous photo, resembling that of F. gigantea but usually built on conical mound of up to 1/5 t of stones, up to 4 m in basal diameter and built up. The horned coot is monogamous, and sometimes breeds in colonies of up to 80 pairs. The huge nest is typically located about 40 meters from the shore in the waters of the high-altitude lakes where it breeds. Pebbles are piled by the birds to form an artificial island that reaches the water surface. This island is then covered with algae to form the nest. It has been estimated that the pebble mounds may weigh as much as 1.5 tons and they are refurbished in each season. They breed from November to January. The gerfalcon thrives in some of the harshest climates on Earth. This denizen of the mountains and high Arctic tundra is a circumpolar species, found throughout the region of the North Pole. It nests in the Arctic and subarctic regions of North America, Europe, Asia, Greenland, and Iceland. Gerfalcons nest on cliffs or in conifer tree nests of other species, such as common ravens and golden eagles. They may nest directly on cliff ledges, often protected by overhangs oriented away from the wind. The nest site, known as an eyrie, is usually on a grassy or earthen cliff ledge, quarry, or other inaccessible undisturbed location. What kind of nest do peregrine falcons make? Peregrine falcons do not bring nesting material to an area to build a nest. Instead, they make what is called a scrape or shallow depression in existing gravel or other debris by lying down and pushing back with a foot. Basic description: the largest falcon in the world, the ghostly gerfalcon, is a fierce predator in the high Arctic, where it chases down ptarmigans in flight or plummets from the sky at breathtaking speeds to strike prey to the ground. The little grebe is a small water bird that is commonly found in open bodies of water across most of its wide range. Adult birds are unmistakable in summer. They are predominantly dark above with their rich, rufous color neck, cheeks, and flanks, and bright yellow gape. The rufous is replaced by a dirty brownish-gray in non-breeding and juvenile birds. Juvenile birds have a yellow bill with a small black tip and black and white streaks on the cheeks and sides of the neck. This yellow bill darkens as the juveniles grow, eventually turning black in adulthood. Little grebes are found across the UK, although they are largely absent from upland areas. Look for it wherever there are suitable lakes, gravel pits, canals and slow rivers with plenty of vegetation. In winter it can be found on more exposed lakes, as well as sheltered coasts and estuaries. Western grebes build their nests near the water's edge in emergent vegetation, usually rushes or reeds, less often in pondweed or milfoil. Water depth below the nest is usually less than a foot, and most nest sites are sheltered from wave action. Both male and female build the nest together. The common tailorbird is a songbird found across tropical Asia. Popular for its nest made of leaves sewn together and immortalized by Rudyard Kipling as Darzee in his Jungle Book, it is a common resident in urban gardens. This passerine bird is typically found in open farmland, scrub, forest edges and gardens. Tailorbirds get their name from the way their nest is constructed. The edges of a large leaf are pierced and sewn together with plant fiber or spider silk to make a cradle in which the actual nest is built. It makes its nest in a hole in a tree trunk. And the tailor bird uses its sharp beak to stitch together two leaves on a bush. It lays its eggs in the fold of the leaf that it has made. This is its nest. Not all birds build their nests from twigs and dry grass. Some make mud nests. Others nest among stones. Across the tropical ecosystems of Asia, the small common tailorbird, Orthodamus sartorius, sews a sturdy bird nest together from leaves and spider webs. Woodpeckers are part of the bird family Picidae, which also includes the piculets, wrynecks, and sapsuckers. Members of this family are found worldwide, except for Australia, New Guinea, New Zealand, Madagascar, and the extreme polar regions. Most species live in forests or woodland habitats, although a few species are known that live in treeless areas, such as rocky hillsides and deserts, and the Gila woodpecker specializes in exploiting cacti. Many woodpeckers chisel out deep cavities in tree trunks in order to lay their eggs and raise their brood. The cavities hollowed out by the birds vary in size, depending on the species of woodpecker. The chamber of a tiny downy woodpecker descends about a foot from the opening, while the pileated woodpecker may chip out a chamber 2 feet deep. Both are beyond the reach of a pesky raccoon. Most North American woodpeckers carve a new nest cavity each spring. BirdNote celebrates the everyday actions of our listeners and the work of our conservation partners to reverse the alarming decline in North American birds. The African Jacana Actophilornis africanus is a wader in the family Jacanidae. It has long toes and long claws that enables it to walk on floating vegetation in shallow lakes, its preferred habitat. It is widely distributed in sub-Saharan Africa. For the origin and pronunciation of the name, see Jacanidae. The nest is usually a simple, partly submerged pad of aquatic vegetation, although on deeper water, nests are generally placed on small floating rafts of vegetation. The female African jacana lays several clutches of eggs between December and April. The eggs are brown in color, glossy, with irregular black markings. Jacanas are also known as Jesus birds because of their ability to walk on water with their slender legs and curiously long toes. In fact, they technically walk on floating vegetation, which gives the impression that they are walking on water. These birds nest in large softwood trees with existing cavities. During the breeding season, hornbill pairs find a suitable cavity. The female then seals herself inside this cavity with droppings in mud and lays eggs, leaving only a slit for the male to bring back food for the family. Hornbills nest in tree hollows. Female hornbills incarcerate themselves within the hollow, shed their feathers, lay eggs and incubate them. This can last from 90 to 130 days. During this time, the male hornbill feeds the female, and later, the chicks as well, through the slit-like opening to the nest. During incubation, the female hornbill seals herself inside the tree cavity. Its entrance is sealed by a plaster of dirt, mud, bits of food and droppings to protect her egg from predators and threats from outside of the nest. 90 days. The female hornbill seals herself into the nest box for 90 days or more when breeding. While confined, she depends on the male to return daily to feed her and the chicks. The hornbill can live up to 35 years and can be found in Southeast Asia. Rhinoceros hornbills are cavity nesters, meaning the female hornbill will lay 1 to 3 eggs inside a hollowed-out tree. Hornbills are secondary cavity nesters and choose cavities formed in large trees for nesting. Also, they are monogamous, and the female, after copulation, seals herself in the hole until the initial breeding period of 2-4 months is over. Purple swamp hens are common throughout Tasmania and many areas of eastern and northern Australia, with a separate subspecies common in the extreme southwest of the country. Purple swamp hens are often seen flicking their tails and grazing near ponds or lakes in parks and botanical gardens, storm water drains, wetlands, freshwater swamps and marshes, and along major urban rivers such as the Brisbane, Derwent, Yarra, Torrens, and Swan rivers. The nesting season is from June to September. The nest is large pad of reed leaves on a floating mass or hidden inside the reed beds. 3 to 6 eggs are laid with pale yellowish color and blotched or spotted with reddish brown. Whether both the sexes share all domestic duties is a thing to be studied and discovered. The nesting season is from June to September. The nest is large pad of reed leaves on a floating mass or hidden inside the reed beds. 3 to 6 eggs are laid with pale yellowish color and blotched or spotted with reddish brown. Whether both the sexes share all domestic duties is a thing to be studied and discovered. More study is needed to ascertain more life habits of these shy birds. The only threat to these marvelous birds is the pollution of these still water bodies, as agricultural toxic wastes are led to the marshes, and in urban surroundings the sewage water led to such swamps and geels.